Hey, what's up, folks? This is Chris Kern, and you're listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is Steve Bowtie Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South, and I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card, Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheik, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at stevebowtiebryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and I'm here as always with my brother from the same father and mother, the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street. What you doing, Sheik? How you doing today?
Man, just relaxing today. Just got a day off and trying to make the most of it.
Nice, nice. Have you been in the pool today? Is it too chilly?
Yeah, it's too chilly. The month of September has been pretty chilly this a little bit, so it's been hard to.
Yeah.
We could run a heater, but it uses a lot of propane. So
yeah, that sounds nice though. A nice little heated pool.
Well, and the heated pool is nice, but it's always when you're getting out. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like.
Yeah. Well, man, enough about the pools. We got a good one today, brother. We've got Mr. Chris Kern on the show. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be another good one. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about Chris, but. From the things I've heard and matches I've seen, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah, neither do I. But either way, I think sometimes that's nice for the show because, it's a learning process for all of us. And it'll be good to learn about a guy that everybody I know respects and has had a great career for himself, And from the research I've done and the studies I've done on the show for the interview, I'm excited to talk to him because he's done a lot of stuff and he's met a lot of cool people and he's worked around a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I'm ready for that. Now, to kind of go backtrack a little bit, we did have Ben Jordan, of course, you've heard us talk about that, and Eron Hatchett, both doing great. Thank you all so much for listening, as always. We hope you enjoyed them both. Definitely, learned a lot from them as well, even though I know them a little bit better than I do Chris. It's just always fun to have all these guys on the show, man, and just hear their stories. We've got some cool stuff coming up too. I'm excited, man. I feel like we're on a roll here.
Yeah, I mean, and another good thing, like we're going to get maybe talk to Chris about Eron a little bit. He remembered Eron had nothing but praise for him. So
yeah, first match. He says his first match was with Chris Kern, and it's one of his favorites of all time. So yeah, very cool. Yeah. Very cool to have that tie-in, especially one after the other. Who do I hear in the background there?
You got Little Sheik here.
Well, tell him to say hi to the listeners.
Say hello. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, that's the Paxton man himself, Little Plastic Sheik. So yeah, that's cool. We got a little run in. He did a little run in.
Yeah, he brought me a Robin, the old Super Friends thing. The leg had came off, and I just popped it back on for him. So
there you go, the Plastic Sheik,
Dr. Plastic Sheik here.
Dr. Plastic Sheik. Yeah, I think we tried that one for a minute too, but yeah, you're just piling on the nicknames. But anyway, yeah. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about before we get the man on himself?
No, man, I'd say let's get it going.
All right. I like your thinking there. Let's get it going. We'll be right back with Chris Kern on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis. We're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
All right, we are back with more from the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And Jared, we've got another great guest today, and the one and only Chris Kern. Chris, how you doing today, brother?
Man, I couldn't be much better. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Hey, our pleasure.
Our pleasure to have you. Yeah,
absolutely, our pleasure to have you, man. Have you ever done a podcast before?
Maybe one or two, but not too many.
Okay. Well, we just ask you a bunch of questions. We'll have some fun. The cool thing is, man, is I unfortunately don't really know you, and it'll be like a learning process for me too. And I think we'll have a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, we'll have fun. So to start everything off on every show, we always go to the very first question from the Plastic Sheik himself, Jared Street. Go ahead, Jared, kick it off.
All right, Chris. So this is my favorite question. It lets us get to know you, lets the audience get to know you. Talk about your like top 4 or 5 wrestlers all time, like your Mount Rushmore of wrestling, people who influenced you or that you were big fans of or whatever.
Mount Rushmore. All right, let's see. I'd have to go with Jackie Fargo, number 1. Number 2, I guess, would have to be Ric Flair.
Woo!
Number 3, Jerry Lawler.
Good man.
Dr. D, David Schultz.
Oh man.
Wow, nice.
Love it.
Beautiful Bobby Eaton.
Golly, yes.
Yeah.
And one more, Ricky Morton.
Oh man. Dude, you are hitting.
Don't get much better than that.
Yeah, we are hitting them all. I love it. I tell you what, I know we're going to get along with you today, brother. It's going to be a good show because that list right there tells you everything, man. Really love that. I love that question. That's why we put it at the very beginning because it lets everybody know kind of where you're coming from. So I love that.
I want to give a little explanation of that.
Yeah, please.
Sure, yeah.
Number 1, Jackie Fargo, because he influenced me as a 5-year-old kid. Number 2, Ric Flair, because I think he's the world's greatest heavyweight champion that ever lived.
Yeah.
Number 3, Jerry Lawler, because he's so versatile, either heel or babyface. He was great at both. Number 4, Dr. D, David Schultz, because he was the best heel, in my opinion. I think he was the best heel for the money. And number 5, Bobby Eaton, as the greatest worker of all time that ever put on a pair of boots.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And number 6, Ricky Morton is the best salesman of all time.
Yeah.
That's why.
So were you a 5-year-old doing the Fargo strut? Were you doing that? Like
in the ring with Jackie Fargo, believe it or not.
Oh man.
The story is I lived in Nashville. My mom and stepdad owned a restaurant right at the foothill of the Fairgrounds Sports Arena, a place called Bobby's Catfish Cabin, when Fair Park was still in business. We were right across the street from Fair Park. I went to school at the elementary school right across the street, Falls Hamilton Elementary.
Yeah.
As a 5-year-old kid, Jackie used to come into the restaurant all the time. And my mom worked in a place she also worked on the side at a little place called the Flamingo Lounge, which Jackie was a regular customer there. And one night Jackie was inebriated just a little bit, but he told my mom, he said, "Listen, I've got all girls. I don't have any boys, but I want that boy of yours, that little Chris boy. I want that boy of yours. I got a Halliburton briefcase in the trunk with $10,000 in it. I want to buy that little boy of yours."
Oh my God.
And in 1975, $10,000 was a lot of money.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
He said, Jackie, kiss my ass. I'm not selling you my son. He said, okay, well, we'll go to the bank in the morning. I'll get another $10,000. I'll give you $20,000 for him. I want a boy. I ain't got nothing but girls. I want a boy. She said, Jackie, you're drunk. Go home and go to sleep. So I never heard any more about that. But every time, I guess not every time, but a lot of times when Jackie was on the card and I'd be on the front row, he would point to me and give me the Iggy to come and get in the ring with him and do the Fargo strut.
Oh, man.
Now, fast forward a few years up until 2015 that he came to Tullahoma.
Mm-hmm.
He came to Tullahoma in about 2015, and I asked him if he remembered that. And he said, he said, if I did do that, I'm not denying that I did it. I probably did. But I remember having a kid in Nashville. I had a kid in Memphis. I had a kid in Louisville. I had a kid in Chattanooga that I would let in the ring and do the Fargo strut with. I was like, dang, man, I thought I was the only one,
Oh, dude, yeah, seriously.
But at least I had that privilege and that honor. And when I was a kid, my family was kind of in with the wrestling business. My aunt Sherry dated Andre the Giant and a guy named Cowboy Ray Parker.
Oh my God, this is awesome.
One half of the Texas Outlaws, and
wow.
Cowboy made me a wrestling belt. And I remember being at Cowboy's house all the time when I was a little kid, and he took me. So yeah, and she used to have to ride with Tommy Sloan because if Nick Gouis had found out that she was like his girlfriend, he could have got fired, because back then no wives or girlfriends were allowed to go to the show.
Yeah.
And Tommy Sloan, the referee, was gay, and Sherry used to ride to the matches with Tommy Sloan so Nick wouldn't suspect anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that is wild.
I've been around wrestling all my life, man. I fell in love with it as a kid, and I'm still in love with it today. I'm still in love with old school wrestling today. I'm not in love with
it's us too.
I'm not in love with the shit that they've got now.
Yeah, amen.
So I really appreciate the David Schultz on there because, man, people know him, unfortunately, only from the John Stossel incident where he smacks him, and they don't really know how good a heel he was, and
they need
how
to
good
watch, they need to watch some videotapes from the old Memphis days.
Yeah,
he was the original Stone Cold. He was so ahead of his time. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
He really was. And, to be honest, he's extremely underrated at that. And that, whether or not that John Stossel slap was planned or not, unfortunately, it did veto his career there for a little while, and he didn't get to really run with Hogan like he should have been. He would have been an incredible heel for Hogan. I mean, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So,
they would have made a ton of money.
Absolutely. Okay, so who was it that dated Andre? Repeat that one more time.
My mom's cousin, her name was Sherry.
Okay.
Sherry,
all right.
Sherry Markham was his name. That was his Nashville rat, I guess.
So we don't want to get deep down dirty here, but tell us, did she tell you any Andre stories at all?
No, I mean, I remember being in the car with Andre. My mom owned a Volkswagen station wagon. And we used to have to take the front seat out of the station wagon so Andre could sit in the back seat, and I would sit in the back seat with Andre. And
wow.
Yeah, he was cool.
Man, okay, so how old were you then?
4, 5.
4, 5. And you're looking at this giant, literal giant, not a make-believe giant. This is a real deal. This guy's bigger than the... So how did that feel? I mean, okay, just take yourself, and I know that's tough to remember so far, but I'm sure that's etched in your memory forever. Tell me how you felt sitting beside this literal giant.
Scared to death.
Yeah.
Scared to death. And when he would talk, I couldn't understand anything he said. His French Canadian, his slang was bad back then, and you could barely understand him.
Hello, Chris.
My mom owned that restaurant. He came in one time and ordered everything on the menu and sat there and ate everything that she had on the menu.
Oh my God. So, that's so funny. So I want to kind of dial it back to Jackie for a second, because you've just blown open this whole show, brother, and I love it. So $20,000 in the 70s relates now to around $160,000. So obviously, yeah, she turned it down. Obviously, any good mother would do that. But if you think about it, in today's terms, she turned down $160,000. Man, that's crazy.
And I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't there, but she told me about it, and I believe her. You know what I mean? I believe that Jackie got drunk and really wanted to buy me.
That's hilarious, man. Holy cow. Well, okay, so this kind of leads into my first question. You've answered a lot of it, but I do like to, get it out there. So your younger days, where were you born? Where did you go to high school? That kind of stuff.
Born in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to Nashville when I was 1. Stayed there until I was 7.
Okay.
And then moved back to Fayetteville, and I pretty much have been here most of my adult life. Fayetteville, Tennessee, and I went to school at Lincoln County High School.
Okay.
And I've only made it till the 10th grade, and I was 17 years old, got held back a couple of times. But when I was 17, I found Robert Wallace, and he said he would agree to train me to wrestle, and I quit school. And I just come home and told Mom that I found my dream and I'm going to live it,
Yeah. And so when was it that you said you started liking wrestling? You said 4 or 5, around that age?
Around 4 or 5 years old. I used to go to the fairgrounds back before the new building. They still had the Mother's building. It was before the Mother's building had burnt down. I still remember going to that building.
Before the sports arena, man. Wow. That's cool. Yeah. That is awesome. And so obviously you probably loved Jackie Fargo. Can you remember some of your other favorites that you really liked?
I used to, Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey were heels. And I used to stand at the heel dressing room door and let them eat my popcorn. Dennis Condrey has always been a favorite of mine. Tojo Yamamoto. I remember Gypsy Joe from back in those days, and of course, I grew up later, and Gypsy Joe became one of my bookers and one of my best friends. What an honor that was! And
no doubt, yeah.
From back in those days, I still remember Bobby Eaton when Bobby came through, and Tommy Rich.
Yeah.
Tommy Rich, Dr. D, David Schultz was there. At the time, Mr. Wrestling #2. I mean, they all were there back then, man. I mean,
yeah, that's the great era, man. Yeah.
It was before Jerry Jarrett. It was before Jeff. I remember the first night Jeff Jarrett wrestled, and I was there for all that. Now that was as a teenager when I would just go to Nashville and just go to visit my cousin up there. We would always go to the matches.
Yeah.
Been going to the fairgrounds all my life,
That's amazing. That's one of my favorite places. I was so close to getting to work there, but never made it happen. Man, one of my favorite places. So tell me, what was your foot in the door? I mean, obviously, you've had a million interactions and family members close to wrestlers, but what was your official first foot in the door that literally got you to Robert and to train you? Okay,
so my mom worked in Fayetteville at a convenience store, and there was this guy that worked on the outlaw circuit down in Athens, Alabama, called himself the Dirty Dutchman.
Okay.
I guess he was copying Dutch Mantel.
Yeah.
Anyway, he came in with his gimmick on. He came in dressed with wrestling boots and his wrestling shirt that had his gimmick name on it or whatever. She said, "Are you a pro wrestler?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "I've got a son that is dying to get in the pro wrestling business, has been dying, but can't figure out how to get in." So he wrote down his phone number, and I called him the next day, and he told me to be ready to go next Saturday night. And he would introduce me to the guy that would train me. And I went down and, $500 down payment later, I was in the ring training with Robert Wallace.
Okay. Yeah. And obviously there were days, the stretching and stuff like that. Talk about that process, the training with him.
Woo. He about killed me the first day.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of Greco-Roman style stretching or anything like that, but he ran me till I puked. And then when I puked, he ran me some more. And I learned the main thing I learned was how to hit the ropes and how to hit the turnbuckles on that first day, because all I did was run for about 2 hours straight.
Man.
I would throw up in a garbage can and then get right back in the ring and do 30 crisscrosses and run 30 times one way, 30 times the next, and then hit the turnbuckle 30 times each direction, and then bounce up, bounce down like a crisscross. You drop down, drop up, and keep running. I mean, I just ran. And he said, "You did good." He said, I'll see you next Sunday at 6 o'clock. Next Sunday at 6 o'clock, I showed up. And he said, "Well, you're back." He said, "I didn't think you'd be back after me running you like that, but yeah, you're back." He said, "Now let's go in here and let's learn how to wrestle." So he went in there. That's when he started stretching me a little bit, showing me, the arm bars and the leg locks and the camel clutches and all the shit that he knew. Mm-hmm. And it showed me a few of the reversals and what to do. The main thing he tried to teach me some of that shooting stuff was a lot of the guys that were coming in back then, the green guys like me, the old guys weren't going to take to us. You know, right. They might try to test us to see if we can handle ourselves or whatever. So, you know, he said it might not ever happen, but then it might happen your first match. You just never know.
Yeah.
So you got to know these things. So, you know, that lasted for about 2 weeks, and then he said, okay, I'm going to grab you in a headlock. I want you to show me what you would do if somebody grabbed you in a headlock. So I picked him up like a belly to back, and I started going back with him. He said, whoa, 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 whoa. And I went ahead and dropped him. I dropped him on his head. He said, okay. He said, I think it's time we smarten you up a little bit. He said, you know, when you do that to somebody, you're supposed to get them so far back and then just let them go like this. And he took his son and he showed me how to do it with his son.
Yeah.
And he said, now do it to me. And I did it the right way. Robert said I was probably one of the easiest people that he ever tried to train because he only had to show me things one time and I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you come from an athletic background as far as high school and stuff?
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. No. You just took to wrestling easy though.
Yeah, because I've been doing it in the living room with my cousin my whole life.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That's where we all learn it. That's where we all learn, or we think we learn it, you know. But
right.
Yeah.
And when I first learned that the arm drags, you know, we were helping each other with arm drags and hip tosses and whatnot, I was like, oh my God, really? This is so easy. I never knew it was a work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought the arm drags and the hip tosses and shit were real.
Or shoots. Yeah.
Found out it was all work. I was happy.
That's awesome.
That's the best place to learn is in the living room. Me and Jimmy learned all our stuff in the living room. So
move all the furniture aside and pretend like the wall is a rope. Come back. Yeah, everybody does it, right?
That's it.
So Chris, what was your like first like real match, and like what was it with a certain promotion or was it like a small promotion?
Athens, Alabama, working for Alvin Wallace. June the 14th, 1990.
Oh wow!
I wrestled a guy named the Red Shadow, and I still remember the match. You know, he used a gimmick where he took a gimmick and put it in his elbow pad and came off the second rope or the top rope, whatever, and came down with a loaded gimmick in his elbow pad, pinned me, dragged me over to the rope, put his feet on the rope, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's amazing.
The funny thing about that match was I went out wrestling barefoot because back then you either had to have a pair of wrestling boots, or you had to wrestle barefoot.
Yeah.
So I went out on my first match, I wrestled barefoot. By week number 2, there was a guy in the dressing room that had a pair of boots for sale for $50, and they were ugly. They were wore out. They were beat up, but at least they were something on my feet.
Yeah.
And I bought those pair of boots for $50, and you know, just went on upgrading after them
as you went. Now, talk about how early on George Weingroff's place in your life.
Okay. Yeah, George Weingroff, man, he's the one that named me Chris Kern.
Okay.
First and foremost, because I was using my real name, Cruising Chris Price is what I was going by.
It's not bad. Not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I ever knew as a teenager. That's all I did was cruise around town, you know. So,
well, hey, yeah.
Cruising Chris Price. But a guy here in Fayetteville named Big Mike Norman, I rolled up on him at a gas station one day, and man, I'd been trying to get in the business, and every time I saw Big Mike, I knew he was a referee. I said, man, I want to get trained. I ain't nobody training right now. Ain't nobody training. He kayfabed me for years, man. He wouldn't tell me nobody knew where to go. He honored the business by keeping kayfabe. He wouldn't tell me nothing. Mm-hmm. So I saw him at a gas station after I got smart, and I walked up to him. I said, hey, man, I'm smart. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you don't have to kayfabe me no more. He said, oh, yeah? Well, hell, boy, who trained you? I said, Robert Wallace. Oh, Robert, down there in Athens. I said, yeah. Well, I tell you what, how long you been in? I said, about 6 months. I've been doing nothing but down there, $5 and a hot dog.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to some other places. Well, yeah, how about Thursday night? You just get in the truck and ride with me, and we'll go to Shelbyville, and I'll start taking you to places on Friday night and Saturday night, and we got some Sunday shows we can do, and you can just start riding with me. I said, hell yeah. So I started riding with Big Mike. The first show I went to with him was in Shelbyville, Tennessee, and George Weingroff was the booker. And I didn't know I hate to say it, but I didn't know who George was.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I didn't know who Saul Weintraub was. The Germans didn't know. That part of Nashville was before my time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, introduced me to him. He was doing the Sheik gimmick. And he said, what do you wrestle as? I said, Cruising Chris Price. He said, I don't like that name. He said, you kind of look like Steve Kern to me, so we're going to call you Chris Kern, but we're going to spell it different so Steve can't get pissed off at us.
Yeah, okay.
I said, whatever you want to do, you know. Yeah. I don't care what you call me as long as you book me. Well, he gave me a tryout match, and I did pretty good. He welcomed me back the next Thursday, and I kept going with a guy named Tommy Reed and Sammy Manier on Friday and Saturday nights in like Tullahoma or Lewisburg, and then got hooked up with Freddie Morton in Columbia at the Grand Slam, and then we did some stuff on Sundays. We'd either go down to Alabama, Iuka, Mississippi, or wherever we could wrestle, you know, down in Albertville, Boaz, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I just started riding with Big Mike, you know, and I owe most of my career to Big Mike because he would smarten me up about how to be a heel, because when I got booked around here, everybody wanted to use me as a heel.
Yeah, okay.
He started smarting me up on how to be a heel, what to do, what not to do, when to do it, when not to do it, how to do it, what to say, what not to say, you know. Don't ever cuss the people. Don't ever cuss them. You can get more heat by calling them hillbillies and rednecks and toothless wonders. You can get more heat by doing that than you can by calling them mother and some bitches, you know?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And he was right. You know, all I do is just look at him and tell him to stop booing me. And it raised up the whole crowd.
Yeah.
And I owe most of my early career to Big Mike. If Big Mike hadn't took me out with him, I don't know how far I might have went. You know what I mean? I might not have went nowhere. I mean, I really didn't go anywhere, but I might not have got to enjoy as much as I did if it hadn't been for Big Mike.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So tell us, it looks like maybe, is it 1993 or something, you worked in WCW some?
I did. Yeah. Went down there. First time I went was with Jason Giannetti. He took me down there the first time. And then I got, after that little tour, I went down with Chris Champion and J.D. Wolf.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story?
Please.
Oh, God, please do.
My job while I was riding with Chris was doing the Yoshi Kwan gimmick. And J.D. Wolf was the driver. Chris would sit in the front seat. And, of course, I was in the back seat. My job on the road, riding with Chris Champion, was just to simply keep him rolled up. He gave me the bag and bought a pack of papers, and I rolled them up, and we smoked them. And I kept him high all the way to Atlanta and all the way back to Tennessee, you know?
Yeah.
So we'd probably go through an ounce each time we went down there.
Wow.
And hey, it was great though, man. I got to smoke with Booker T. We sat in Booker T's red Cadillac and got high with him, and I got to drink with Harley Race at the Marriott bar, sitting right beside Harley Race. I got to drink with Harley and Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton, and it's amazing how when those guys get a little tipsy or whatever, they really don't care whether you're a jobber. As long as you're one of the boys, they'll talk to you.
One of the brotherhood. Yeah,
they're not protecting their ego if they're in the bar. You know what I mean? If they're in the dressing room, they're kind of protecting their ego, and they don't want any of the bookers or whatever to see them talking to us or whatever. But I think if they're in the bar, it's a little looser setting, and they can free up. And talking to Harley Race, man, golly, talking about one guy who's really hard to understand when they're driving.
That's really good, Chris.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. When he had 12 or 14 Jack Daniels, you know, on the rocks. Yeah. But I had a good time.
Man, that's...
12 or 14 Jack Daniels and about 3 packs of cigarettes, I'd say.
Yeah, that too.
Now, okay, so you're sitting beside, arguably, and you didn't put him on your list, but I think on anybody's list, Harley Race could be on there, no problem. But you're sitting beside arguably one of the greatest world champions of all time. Is there anything you pulled from him as far as like just listening to him talk? I mean...
No, because, I mean, I listened to him, but he was talking to Arn and Bobby and Chris, and mainly I was listening. I got to listen, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And he would look at me every once in a while and say, "That's what I'm talking about," you know? And yes sir, I'm listening. And then I got to do another tour with Chris and JD, and I was working some of the guys that he was managing called the Colossal Kongs.
Oh, yeah.
Two big 500 pounds a piece guys, and I just got shit canned out. And when I got shit canned out, Harley picked me up and he said, "Eat the post, kid." And I went down, and that was my job, and I did that match. See, WCW, you got one match. It's the same match night after night after night after night, town after town after town after town. You don't do nothing different. Yeah. You got the same. With them, we had the same minute and a half, and it was the same spot with different people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was night after night after night, and like I'd have different partners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, if they shit can me, they do the finish on him. Or if they shit can him, they do the finish on me.
Sure.
And you do the same match night after night after night for the whole tour. That's the way it went with the Nancy Boys. That's the way it went with the Colossal Kongs. That's the way it went with the Hollywood Blondes.
Yeah.
You know, everybody I work down there, you do one match, one certain match. And whatever match you do in that town, that's the same match you do town after town after town. You don't change it.
Right. Okay. Did you work as Chris Kern there as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure did.
Yeah. Because we had Gator McAllister on, and he was telling a lot of these similar stories, man. It's crazy. Did you all run into each other at all down there?
Not that I remember.
Yeah, yeah. He was going by Gary McAllister because they didn't want to use Gator because of Steve Kern, which turns into your name. It's like a little circle there. It's kind of crazy because he was using that Skinner gimmick, and then he came to WCW, and Steve was going to be like their version of Jake the Snake. And then long story short, that didn't happen. And so it's just funny how small little world everything is, you know? So that's cool, man. Yeah.
Well, my run didn't last long with WCW. They told me to lose weight and gain muscle.
Oh,
and if I needed help with that, there's some guys back there in the back that Jody Hamilton said this to me. He said, "You need to lose weight and gain muscle. And if you need some help with that, there's some guys back there in the back that's got some stuff in their bags that'll help you out."
Wow. Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. And I didn't want to go that route. You know what I mean? I didn't want to get on the gas. You know what I mean?
Understand. Yeah. You know,
I came home and got fat and stayed on the indies.
Well, hey, I mean, you know, that's a choice to make. And I mean, honestly, that is something that every wrestler, I think, probably has dealt with in their career is, do I choose to go that route, or do I stay the way that I am, a more natural style? And you could always tell the gassed up dudes versus the guys that weren't. But there were some guys that could do it naturally and didn't need that assistance. But what you're saying is you kind of made that choice. It's like, look, I don't want to go that route. I don't want to use something, in that case steroids, to make myself look better. But I mean, do you feel like, let's just ask this question since we're talking, do you feel like if you would have made that choice, do you regret not going that direction?
Absolutely. Yeah, because if I had have done that instead of coming home and getting married, getting fat, I probably would have made it.
Yeah. I mean, because that's a big choice, man.
I think I had what it takes. You know what I mean? I think I had what it takes to make it in the business. I had the passion for it. I had the drive. I had the desire. I had the ability. I had the want it, you know, and there's no reason why I couldn't have made it if I had got on the gas. I just chose not to, you know? Yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? That's all those there, you know?
Yeah.
So our most recent guest, Eron Hatchett, was on the show, and he was talking about that his very first match was with you. And honestly, that remained one of his all-time favorite matches that he's ever had. You and Jamie Dundee were essentially his two favorite matches. But honestly, that was his very first match. Can you talk a little bit about, do you remember working Eron?
What an honor. When I listened to that, what an honor that was for me to listen to him say that. And I do remember Eron very, very fondly, you know what I mean? And then, as y'all say, he had to take that break.
Yeah, right.
And couldn't believe it, you know what I mean? But yeah, it is what it was. But no, I don't remember being his first match. I don't really remember the match or where it was. But what an honor it was to listen to him say that and to know that I'm one of his favorite workers, man. that humbles you when you hear people say stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool.
Very humble and very proud, and Eron's a great guy. He was always one of the friendliest guys in the dressing rooms, and I'll never have anything bad to say about Eron Hatchett. Never.
Yeah, I don't think anybody honestly can. If they are, that's their problem. It's not Eron's fault.
They've got a problem. That's right.
Yeah,
he don't have a problem. They've got a problem.
Right.
That's exactly
yeah.
right.
He was a great interview, just like this one's going great too. We're enjoying this, man. So obviously, you're going on in your career. You said you had your little run in WCW, which is amazing. So early on in your career, especially. Now you end up meeting up with a guy named Lonnie Lane, man. Tell us a little bit about that.
Carl Houston. Whoo, man. Okay, so we're in the dressing room one night in Shelbyville, and I don't really have a gimmick. I'm just doing the gimmick, Chris Kern. You know what I mean? I don't really have anything. I've got the ugliest tights in the world, neon green and neon orange. He come to me and he said, hey, I've been talking to Gypsy Joe. I've got an idea. He said, I want to use you to do it. He said, I want to do a gimmick called the Bad Boys, where we put on like some blue jeans and pants, and I'll paint them up. We put the Tasmanian Devil on the back of our jackets, and we'll come out to the theme from Cops, and we'll call ourselves the Bad Boys.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's better than what I'm doing now. and Joe said he would put us over and make us a good heel tag team, and we'll try it and see what happens. I said, okay, yeah, let's do it. So he got me a denim jacket, painted Taz on the back of it. I got me some blue jean pants, and he cut them up and put holes in them and painted chains on them. And the next week, we went out to the theme music from Cops, and the fans took to it, and we started getting heat, and Joe booked us against some Heat Factory baby faces, and we eat them up, spit them out, and shoot them up, and week after week after week, and Joe just kept putting us over and putting belts on us, and there in Shelbyville, and then we started wrestling around in Columbia, and, started touring with, just the local little circuit here, Columbia, Lewisburg, Tullahoma, Winchester, wherever.
Yeah.
And we did that little run probably for about 2 years. And then Lonnie got tied up in Dixon. He started running a show at a bar in Dixon, and he didn't want to travel anymore. And then the next thing I know, he's out of the business. Maybe he had a motorcycle wreck or something, I think. I think he had a motorcycle wreck and messed him up pretty bad, and he got out of the business. And I guess over the years, his health got worse and worse and worse. And the next thing I knew, he had passed away.
Man, it's a shame.
But it was great while it lasted. And I'm going to be honest, the most heat I ever got was with Lonnie. Now, I got a lot of heat. With Hot Rod, but we did this gimmick here in Fayetteville. We were running at a taxi stand, and I've got this in my notes that I wanted to talk about.
Please, yeah.
It's a little story. Do y'all remember a guy named Rex Locke?
I remember the name.
Him and Mark Dunham did the Backwoods Brawlers.
Okay.
Anyway, one night it's the Bad Boys against the Backwoods Brawlers. Rex's hometown is Fayetteville, Tennessee. My hometown is Fayetteville, Tennessee. We're wrestling at a cab stand in Fayetteville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I'm a heel, but Rex is the babyface. Rex's whole family is there, and he's got 40 or 50 people in his family there. His brother owns the cab stand. His name is Eddie Vaughn. They didn't have the same last name, but they were half brothers or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Eddie Vaughn had a prosthetic leg. So one night, Lonnie gets the big idea that we're going to do a big schmoz at the end, go out and do a run-in on their match. And Eddie's going to jump in the ring, and we're going to take his prosthetic leg off of him and beat him up with his own leg.
Oh, man. Wow.
And we did, and we took the nuts or the bolts or whatever that were in the leg, and we gigged him, and Lonnie gigged him, and, man, blood was flowing like wine, brother. And you talking about, there was probably 250 or 300 people there, and half of them were losing their mind. They were going crazy. There was so much heat, we couldn't even hardly get out of the wrestling ring. But when we did get out of the ring, there was a girl, which was Rex's sister, that took a swing at Lonnie with the chair and hit him in the top of the head with a chair. He jerked the chair out of her hand, turned around and smacked her right in the face with it.
Oh, my gosh.
So now knives are popping out, guns are popping out. And I'm telling Lonnie, come on, man, let's go, get back in the dressing room. And he's like, damn, come on, you're going to get killed if you don't come on. So I pushed him back in the dressing room. We got back there. We had to sit back there for 45 minutes or an hour before we could ever leave because nobody was leaving. Yeah. None of the fans were leaving. They wanted to stay to see us get stuck. Well, they finally called the police, and the police told everybody they had to leave. Once everybody left, then we were able to leave. But that was probably the hottest night I've had in my whole career.
I'd say,
man.
Wow, dude,
yeah.
Man.
Tell us a little bit about working with Pork Chop Cash.
Okay, so remember me telling you about Mississippi, going down there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so one of the things I did was I got down there, and Pork Chop Cash was in Iuka, Mississippi, working for Lee Hickerson. And went down there for the first time, had to buy my Mississippi license or whatever. It was $10 for my license, but they promised to give it back to me in my envelope, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, a guy named Pork Chop Cash was there. They said, we're going to put you in Pork Chop Cash tonight. And he had the Bruz Brothers briefcase that he had when he was with his old partner or whatever. Mm-hmm. He said, I ain't never had a white Bruz brother before, but you're going to be my first white Bruz brother. I said, okay, whatever you want me to do, man, I'll do it. Anyway, but they had broken up and he needed a partner. So I was there. And I only did it with him maybe one or two times, right? And did it down in Iuka, Mississippi. And it was great. Good crowd, 150, 200 people, lively. We were the main event. Shine, heat, comeback finish, you know. Basic wrestling match on the matches. And then I didn't go down to Mississippi anymore, but I got the idea one night, I guess, I can't remember what year it was, maybe 94, late 94, early 95. Tommy Higgy looks at me and he says, me and Breeze are getting ready to bump ourselves down off the card. This happened in Lewisburg at the National Guard Armory. He sat me down and he said, I'm getting ready to take me and Breeze down off the card. I feel like we've done as much as we can do with the Wild Boy and the Mortons, and I'm fixing to take us down a notch. But I'm gonna find a heel tag team to come up and be the new top tag team. And I'd like for you to be. He said, I'd like for you to be part of it. Yeah. I need you to find you a partner, somebody that you can trust, somebody that's good, somebody that's not, you know, too smart to the business, but somebody you can teach. I said, okay. Well, it just so happens that night that Hot Rod Biggs was in the dressing room for the first time, and he wasn't working, but he was there. He had his arm in a sling. I guess he had heard it in Nashville, working in Nashville, had his arm in a sling. Well, the finish that I had, I wanted to use some spray, like some aerosol spray, you know, the Febreze stuff kind of. Yeah. I wanted to spray it in the guy's face for the finish. Well, he had his arm in a sling. I asked Tommy, I said, well, can I take him out as my manager? Because Marcus Woodrow III didn't show up. I said, can I take him out as my manager? And he said, yeah, I don't care. So Hot Rod went out with me. I said, just follow me. Just do what I tell you to do and just follow me. He said, okay. Because Rod hadn't been in the business long. Yeah. And I said, hold this can, and when I ask you for it, I'll say Iggy, and you'll hand me the can. Okay, so we got to the finish. I said Iggy. He gave me the can. We did the finish. But while we were out there, I was watching him. Like, I'd get the rest hold on the kid, and I was watching Rod, and he was mingling with the crowd the whole time, being a heel. And just natural, man, just natural, getting heat with the marks. So after we got through with the match or whatever, I went back to Tommy, and I said, Tommy, that guy that went out there with me tonight, that's who I want to be my partner. He said, really? I said, yeah, really. I think he's got what it takes. I mean, did you watch him while he was working? He said, no, I didn't watch it. I said, he was out there working those people the whole time. I said, there wasn't a dead moment. He didn't let it die, not at all. So that's who I want to be my partner. I said, we'll get us some penguin suits, some bow ties, some white shirts, and some jackets, and we'll do like a gimmick called the Bruz Brothers. Yeah. And Tommy said, okay. I said, I'll call Pork Chop Cash and get permission. And I had Big Mike to call Pork Chop, ask permission, and he said he didn't care. He wasn't doing the gimmick anymore. So the following Saturday night, man, Lewisburg, Tennessee, the Bruz Brothers were born.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. First of all, let's stop real quick. You are talking about taking, and I know most of our listeners are going to say, okay, that's cool, but this is epic, man. You guys were anointed the spot of the Devils. I mean, the longtime heels, man, the heels. If you think heels in that scene, you think the Devils, and you took their spots. That's huge. First of all, that's an honor. You know what I'm saying? And then obviously getting with Rod and it naturally becoming this tag team. That's a whole other, you know, it's like epic moment after epic moment. You know what I mean?
I could not believe it when Tommy sat me down and was telling me this, man. I was just humbled. You know what I mean? I was amazed and I was humbled. And what an honor it was for Tommy to sit me down, you know what I mean, and say, I'm passing the torch to you.
Yeah.
And I want you to do it. Man, there was no better feeling in the world. So I knew I had to take the ball and run with it. And I think the Bruz Brothers did a pretty good job.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
They put us with the Morton boys, and they put us with the Wild Boys, and they put us with the Wild Boys and Gary Scott and Gary Valiant. And it was great. It was great, man. I loved every minute of it.
Now, out of all those guys, you talk about working the Mortons and the Wild Boys. Ben Jordan's brought this up before. Shane's brought this up before. There were elements of the Mortons that took a little bit from the Wild Boys, and it was like a natural, not rivalry, but also it was a little bit of a rivalry as far as the better babyface tag teams. Can you compare working the Mortons and the Wild Boys at all? What were their differences? What were their similarities?
Man, that's a good question. The Wild Boys were more over with the ladies,
okay.
I think.
Okay.
I don't know if the Mortons ever had ladies giving them roses on the way to the ring.
Gotcha.
But that happened quite often with the Wild Boys. The girls would give the Wild Boys roses quite often. Gotcha. And I don't remember that happening with the Mortons. Work quality... Man, I trained Shane because Freddie wouldn't train him. He was too little. And Shane wouldn't, Shane came to me and wanted me to train him. So I trained him, and then he trained Steve. And I can't compare the two as far as work quality because, it was shine, heat, comeback, finish, match after match after match.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as getting over, I think the Wild Boys might have been just a little bit, more handsome and, seriously.
I get it.
Yeah. I love Shane. And I love Steve. And they were over. They were over, but I have to lean toward the Wild Boys a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like the Wild Boys, I love PG-13. We're going to talk about them in a minute, and I don't want to jump the gun on that. But, I feel like the Wild Boys deserved a run, man. I do. I feel like, especially in Memphis, I don't know what the booking situation was there. I know Ben did a lot of TV, but, man, I feel like the Wild Boys deserved a run that, I would have loved to have seen them get a little more of a run, especially in Memphis, to see what they could have done, man. And then I know the PG kind of had the spot, and it was a little tough to take that spot once they were in it. But man, I really feel like and again, I'm the world's biggest PG-13 fan, but I would have loved to have seen what the Wild Boys could have done in that same spot.
Can I interject just a little bit?
Please.
By knowing,
it's your show, brother.
Just by knowing Ben and knowing Steve, I'm not 100% sure that they might have been willing to have hit the road at that time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe they could have had that spot, maybe they could have had a spot down there.
Gotcha.
But from what I remember about them in the dressing room, like dressing rooms were separated, but I hung out with them in the back or whatever, and they would say stuff like, man, I don't want to go on the road. I don't want to, I just want to stay local and stuff like that. I don't think they really wanted to travel like the Memphis circuit. Maybe
and that makes sense.
That's kind of what I remember. You know what I mean? They wanted to stay local. They were over where they were at. They were making money.
Yeah.
Why mess it up?
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Their gimmick table was selling out night after night after night. So why, if you're making a few $100s in gimmicks, why mess it up?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's a great point and a great way to look at it because, Ben had been doing the underneath stuff in WWF and then he wins the global lightweight title. So he had his little bitty run, but he did say that comparing the level of guys that he got to work as an underneath guy versus the tit for tat, the back and forth matches with the Devils and you guys and stuff like that, he liked that better. He got more out of it.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah,
the time that I spent in WCW doing enhancement work, man, I kind of hated it. You know what I mean? I was getting paid. Right. I was making money, but I kind of hated it. And because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I was limited to what I could do. Like it was match after match after match, time after time after time. It was the same old shit, repeat. Yeah. There was no freedom to do what you wanted to do. You know, and I'm a walker talker,
Right.
I'm not a sit in the back and call it kind of guy. I feel the people. I feel the energy. And if I can't work that way, I can't work. It's just how I am. And that's probably why, and that's the main reason why I'm not in the business now, is I hate what the business became.
Right.
A guy coming up to you 45 minutes before the show talking about, hey, what are we going to do?
Right.
We're going to work. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to lead the match, and you're going to follow.
Right. You're going to keep your ears open.
Well, what spots are we going to do? We're going to do the finish. That's the spot we're going to do.
Yeah.
You can put my feet on the ropes. 1, 2, 3. That's the finish. We're not going to call anything else. Yeah, we're going to call it in the ring.
Yeah.
They were lost. They were lost. They didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious.
It would ruin their whole day. And I'd get them in the ring, and we'd have that kind of match, and the crowd would bite, man. They'd be standing and cheering or standing and booing every time. Yeah. And I'd come back and say, now that's how you wrestle.
Yeah.
But the following week, I'd see them working somebody else, and they'd be talking for an hour and a half before the show about each spot they were going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is speaking from an outsider's perspective here. Like that, I've never been in the ring or anything like that, but I always feel like sometimes when the crowd's dead in a match where you've got everything planned out, it's hard to reverse course. But if you're just working the crowd as it goes, and if you don't have it all scripted out, you can change it up and do something more exciting or get the crowd back into it. Something quite a bit easier.
Okay, so now that you said that, let me say this. There's a guy on the indie circuit right now. His name is Cousin Condry.
Love Cousin, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time I talked to him, I told him, look, I love your shit. I think you're the best thing on the circuit right now. Okay, but listen, these spots that you're doing, they look great, but I want to know just man to man, you tell me whether you can or whether you can't. If you're out there and you call every spot for your match, if you start hearing crickets, are you able to change it up and start calling walking and talking? Mm-hmm. He said, yes, sir. He said, his daddy's Lee Condry.
Oh, yeah, Outlaw Lee, yeah.
My daddy taught me how to walk and talk before I ever started calling spots.
Yeah.
So if ever I'm in a situation where whatever we're doing don't work, then I can start walking and talking and get the crowd back. I said, why can't everybody be like that?
Right.
Why, if it could be that way, that would be great. Wrestling would still be great. Right. But a lot of guys can't work like that. I'm not going to mention any names, but I work with some at Money Mark Productions, that can't work that way. Yeah. Everything's got to be spotted out. And if they mess up a spot, they just try it again.
Yeah. When do you think that change happened? Happened?
So here's my synopsis of it. It started happening when PS3 and PS games came out, and they could play video games at home, and they would sit at home all week and play video games and say, "Hey, why don't we do this in our match Saturday night?"
Right.
So they would spot out their matches based on what they were doing on their PS3s and PS4s or whatever. That's just my belief.
Yeah. That you're onto something, I think, Chris. I really do, because I feel like that it is a very video game. You know, Wolfie compares it to an action movie scene where it's like you do this, I do this, but there's not really a story in that fight. It's literally just playing out an action game. But I think you might be onto something bigger than that, actually. Because there's no. I mean, I don't know if you ever played a wrestling video game, but I'll tell you this: there's no.
But my son played them all.
Yeah, well, there's no real story. There's no psychology into those matches. It's just you're trying to beat the guy that's next to you or on the computer, whatever. Yeah. There's no psychology, and it's just who does the better moves. And I think you're onto something. That might be the statement of the show right there, Chris.
I think I really am onto something, because my son had all those games, and he could not be beat. The computer couldn't beat him. Yeah, he was great. He was great at it. Yeah, and when he started trying to wrestle, which he no longer does because he got hurt. Anyway, that's another story. I'll tell it later, maybe. I think that's where he got a lot of his ideas. Once he got into business, he wanted to be a spot monkey like that, and I didn't allow it. I said, I'm not going to train you if you're going to be a spot monkey. You can either learn how to walk and talk, or you're not getting into business.
Yeah. I tell you what's funny is I managed Cousin Condrey when we were working for Mike Porter, and he was 14 years old, and I had no idea the kid was 14. I thought he looked young, but heck, they all looked young to me at that time. And that kid was flying all over the place, doing those crazy, it's like it's like a barrel roll into the guy in the term. He was doing really cool original stuff, but he wasn't quite there mentally with it all yet. But man, I tell you what, I was impressed when he was 14, and I'm happy. I'm a big Cousin Condrey fan. I'm happy he's doing well, and I'm happy to hear that he's getting your thumbs up too, because like I said, I'm a big fan of Outlaw Lee Condrey too. He's a great guy. It helped me out a lot too.
I think if any of the guys that are around on the indie circuit right now will make it, he'll be the one that goes to the dance.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I feel big. He's a former guest. We had him on the show a few months ago, and really great conversation with him, and enjoyed that a lot.
He's respectful too. That's what I like about him.
He is. You know what I mean? Yeah, he absolutely is. He called me sir, and I was like, no, it ain't how it works, but okay.
A lot of these younger guys, they just don't have the respect that they should, because they haven't been taught. Whoever trained them didn't train them right, Right, exactly. Yeah. So to kind of go back to your story, you're talking about, we took the Devil Spots and the Bruz Brothers and that. You did end up going into a tag team with Blackie West. Talk a little bit about him and that. Man, me and Blackie. It seems like all my tag team partners are except Rod are dead now. Man, that's kind of scary. But Blackie was cool. Blackie was great. This idea wasn't mine. It was his idea. The Southern Outlaws. He wanted to put on leather vests and put on a rebel hat and carry a rebel flag to the ring and just be Leonard Skinner and music and just be strong heels, right? And we were working mainly for Petersburg, which was Steve and Randall. We did Shelbyville and Columbia, Lewisburg, just the same old circuit. Yeah. But yeah, the Southern Outlaws, man, it was a good, strong tag team.
Kind of like the Rebel gimmick, but you're also kind of Southern rocking tag team,
Corey Williams, it was Corey Williams and Ashley Hudson before Corey Williams and Ashley Hudson. We were doing it. We did it first. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
They got the gimmick with Burt, and they started doing it in Nashville. We did it in the smaller towns. We did it first. Yeah. So basically the same gimmick.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it was a good tag team. It was a real good tag team, and Blackie became a great friend of mine. We hung out daily. It wasn't once a week or once every, twice a week. We hung out daily. I lived in Shelbyville at the time, and so did he. And I was managing a rent-to-own store. And he and Gypsy Joe would come into my rent-to-own store, and they would hang out all day long, and we talked about wrestling all day long. And then another one that's passed away worked for me. His name was Shane Rhodes. Shane Rhodes worked for me at the rent-to-own store, and he passed away as well. Yeah, he's a good guy.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes, and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you're interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
Well, this is leading you in, and you're one of the only actually recognized there's a couple third members of this tag team, but very few. And one of them is Frog, and he was put with them in WCW, and that was kind of a situation that WCW put him with him. But you're one of the only officially recognized members of PG-13 when you were doing Lucky 13. Can you talk a little bit about how that got to there?
Whew, okay, yeah. Took a ride one night with Big Mike up to the fairgrounds in Nashville, went in the back with him, and Reno Riggins was there, and he asked me if I brought my stuff, and I said, yeah, of course, and he needed somebody on the card. So I just wrestled as Chris Kern. It was a dark match, and they were doing TV, but it was a dark match. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe Dutch Mantell saw something in me. I don't know. But next thing I knew, the following week, Chris Champion came to me. He said, Kern, they're fixing to put a gimmick on you. I said, what kind of gimmick? He said, a clown gimmick. Do you want to do a clown gimmick? I said, a clown gimmick? He said, yeah. He said, you're going to be with PG-13, their top heel tag team. You're going to go out and you're going to be with PG-13 as their manager, valet, friend, buddy, whatever.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, sure. In that case, yeah. Why not?
Because were you thinking Doink at first or something to that effect? Were you thinking like,
yeah,
oh man?
I didn't know what it was going to be. I thought they were going to make an idiot out of me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I didn't know. You know what I mean? Until they told me I was going to be with Jamie and Wolfie. And when they said I was going to be with Jamie and Wolfie, then I knew I was going to be taken care of.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, yeah, sure. So Chris said, well, come on back here. I've already got the paint. I've already got the shit that we need. He said, I'm gonna put your face on. I said, okay. And he drew me up. He drew the face up as John Wayne Gacy, just different colors.
Yeah.
And put a 13 in the center of my forehead. And the first night I did it, man, it was great. I mean, it was Dutch Mantell's idea and Chris Champion's makeup design, and Chris Champion named me Lucky 13.
Yeah, which Chris actually put PG together too, so it even made more sense that he put you. You know what I'm saying? Like he helped you be with them. So
yeah, and it was great. I didn't travel very much with them, but I was on each one of those TV tapings with them, and I guess I probably did it 6 or 7 times, maybe 8, something like that. Before I guess they decided to jump ship from NWA. I mean, not NWA, but the main event thing for Reno. They decided to jump ship and go back with Burt.
Yeah.
And, and then it was over. And then I brought Lucky 13 back on the indies here to Lewisburg, Shelbyville, Oklahoma. And to be honest, I made more money with that gimmick than any other thing that I've ever done in my whole wrestling career. Because, to be honest with you, there was a point in time that I had taken some time off.
Yeah.
And became a Christian.
Yeah.
And, what they say is you can't have any other gods other than, me, who's a jealous God. So you put all other gods behind. So I had actually quit wrestling for a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that. But I had prayed that God give me some kind of way that I can still wrestle and do his good. You know what I mean? So I did that thing with Jamie and Wolfie, and it came to me. I realized that, this would be a good way to say, now Lucky's going to be a babyface and be the Christian wrestling clown.
Okay, yeah.
And, all right, so I continued to do the gimmick around here, and I would go to the picture table, and I would have like a Lucky bucket, and I carried my Lucky bucket everywhere I went. It was full of candy. And I would have the ring announcer to say that any kid that wants free candy, come on down to the picture table, and Lucky 13 is going to give away free candy to all the children.
Yeah.
Well, that worked like a charm. All the kids came, and I gave them all candy just as I said I would. Emptied out the bucket, gave them all candy. But I would find one or two kids, and I would say, hey, listen, where's your mom and daddy sitting? And they would point to where their mom and daddy were, and I would point with them. And I'd say, listen, I want you to do something for me. Go tell your mom and dad that you would really like to go to church on Sunday. You tell them Lucky 13 wants you to go to church on Sunday. And if they don't want to take you to church, then have a church bus come pick you up. And then I want you to come back here next week and tell Lucky 13 what you learned about a man named Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow, man.
And I don't know if any kids ever got saved, you know what I mean? But I did that for quite a while, man. I did that for several months of teaching kids about going to church and how important it is that you go to church and learn about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why I made a lot of money with that gimmick. I believe because I was blessing children with his name, he was blessing me financially. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would wrestle Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, sometimes on Sunday, and I would make $300 a night pretty easy just selling gimmicks. So $900 a week back in 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
That's a chunk of change, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's such awesome that you were able to incorporate that into your gimmick, and that you were able to reach out and, hey man, you don't know the reach you had, but you planted the seed, and a lot of times that's what it takes.
That's what's important. That's all that's important. Yeah.
That's all you can do. You can't be like, you can't force somebody to go or anything like that, but you can plant the seed, and a lot of kids are real sponges at that age, and if you can really reach out to them and get them to get in their parents' ears and everything like that, it really helps.
Oh man, it was great because there would be some that would come back the following week and they say, I learned a song at church. And I said, you learned a song? And they say, yeah. I said, well, sing it to me. And they would sing Jesus Loves Me to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That is cool, man.
It was good stuff. It was really good.
And it's crazy because I guarantee none of that was thought of for Dutch and Chris Champion. They were never thought that this would end up doing this, And now, how long did you do the Lucky 13 gimmick?
Oh, man, I don't know. Probably about a year, something like that. And then just painting the face got old. I got tired of painting it. It took 45 minutes just to paint it every night. And then
Wow.
I had to do my hair too, and it was a mess. I mean, it was hard to get to the building so early to get it done and go out and sell pictures before the show, because that's the best time. Any guys out there that are listening, that are baby faces, listen to me. You can't sell gimmicks during intermission. You have to sell gimmicks at the beginning of the show. Yeah. Because when people go to intermission, they go to the concession stand and they go outside to smoke.
Or the bathroom or whatever. Yeah.
You can't make money at the gimmick table unless you're there an hour early and catch them as they come in the door. That's where the money's at when you sell gimmicks. You can't get there if the show starts at 8 o'clock. You can't get there at 15 minutes till 8 and put gimmicks on the table and expect them just to go buy them. It don't work that way. You got to get there. They want to buy the gimmicks from you, and they want you to sign it personally in front of them, and you got to. And look, man, when Lucky was selling gimmicks, if they didn't come to the gimmick table, I would take 5 pictures out to the crowd and say, here, I got a picture for $1 or buy 3 for $2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would take the gimmicks to them and make them a deal that they couldn't refuse. And I didn't care. I was paying 27 cents for a picture.
Right.
As long as I made $1 off of it, I didn't care.
That adds up for sure. Now, there's another question, because I've always wanted to ask this, and I don't know, have we had anybody that painted their face on the show, Jared? I'm not thinking of anyone. So
yeah, I can't come up with anybody relative.
Yeah, well, if I'm missing someone, I'm sorry to you, but when you're painting your face now, when you're in the ring, how is that? Does it run in your eyes? Talk about having your face painted, especially when you're sweating and you're in the ring. Because I've remembered seeing like Sting and the Road Warriors where it would peel off their face, but you actually had the whole face gimmicked up. Talk about that a little bit.
It's a mess. It is a mess. You have to not try to move your face like to keep it from cracking.
Yeah.
After you get it put on and it's fresh, you don't want to smile, you don't want to laugh, you don't want to do anything until after you start sweating. And then after you start sweating, it just pours off, because I never used professional clown paint, the powder and all that stuff. I just used wood acrylic paint, the same thing that Chris painted me up with, just wood acrylic paint. It doesn't hurt you, but you just paint your face up and try to keep it from cracking before your match. And that's why I never started painting it. I had it timed where I got it down to where I could do it in about 30 minutes. So if I knew that they were on semi-main and it was going to go for a while, and then there was going to be an intermission afterwards, I could wait until semi-main event to start painting my face. And then I'd start painting it again, because I would paint it twice. I would paint it before the show and then wash it off and then paint it again right before my match if I was main event or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool. So after the Lucky gimmick goes away, talk a little bit about, because I know you end up working for Chandler Anderson. I know there starts to be some drama with that. And I remember, because I was kind of out of the business, I was not in the area any longer, but I remember there being a lot of somewhat drama. Talk about, I guess, leading from Lucky to leading up to working for them at Money Mark Productions.
Well, okay, so the Lucky 13 ended and I was just Chris Kern again. I guess you could call me the Iceman. I was doing the Iceman gimmick.
Right. Talk about that.
I'm the only original Iceman that's ever been a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Iceman King Parsons never sold a bag of ice. JC Ice never sold a bag of ice.
Dean Malenko, nobody. Yeah.
So. I sold ice for a living for 10 years. I was the guy that brought the ice truck, threw the bags, 160 bags in a regular box, 240 in a jumbo box, and I threw the ice in the ice boxes. That was my job. I drove around all day putting ice in ice boxes. So I called myself the Iceman. Did I get some heat from Dundee for it? Yeah. First time you ever, what this shit you calling yourself the Iceman? I said, wait a minute, calm down. I'm not the Ice Baby. I'm not JC Ice. I'm the Iceman, because I'm the only authentic Iceman. I said, Jamie, how many bags of ice have you ever sold? Well, I ain't never sold no bags of ice, but I've used plenty of them, combed down my beard. I said, well, then I am the only original Iceman that's ever been in this business. And I tattooed it on the back of my neck, and I'm the Iceman.
That's awesome.
I didn't mean no harm towards you. I wasn't even thinking of you when I did it.
Right.
Well, all right, Tim. Don't you ever do that shit again.
Man.
Anyway, I was just doing the Iceman thing, and I was working for Mikey Dunn in that little building over there on Mooresville Highway in Lewisburg. Been there for years and years, man. Been working for him for years. And then Chandler Anderson, that's where I met my girlfriend Tiffany, as a matter of fact.
Lady Tiffany, by the way.
Lady Tiffany, yeah. Anyway, Chandler Anderson had become his Money Mark, and they're related some kind of way, cousins, I think. And Chandler was a big wrestling fan and wanted to invest money in his show because his ring was falling apart and his PA system sucked, and so Chandler was taking care of him financially. You know what I mean? And buying this and buying that and buying this and buying that. And I don't really know exactly what happened between them, but they had to come apart. And the next thing I knew, it was either, like Chandler said, you're more than welcome to come with me if you want to, or you can stay here with Mikey if you want to. Whatever you want to do, there won't be no hard feelings either way.
Yeah.
And Chandler was paying good, man. I'm not going to lie. Compared to what Mikey paid, Chandler was paying me like double, you know?
The name was real. Money Mark Productions was real. I've heard that,
so, I went where the money was. I went with Chandler. And Mikey, you know, he hates me to this day because of it. Why he hates me and not everybody else that jumped ship, I don't know.
Right.
But I'm the only one. I tried to make up with him twice. At Gypsy Joe's funeral, I tried to shake his hand. He blew me off. No, he just shook it off. He didn't want no part of it. And then there was another night in Tullahoma. I tried to shake his hand again, and he blew me off. He didn't want no part of it. And I said, okay, well, that's the last time I'm asking.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And anyway, that ain't got nothing to do with anything. I worked for Chandler Anderson and had a real good run with him. Me and him and JP, we were all great friends, you know. And I helped JP come up with ideas in the dressing room and was kind of like the locker room general back then. And a lot of the new guys that were coming in, it was my responsibility to keep them humble and keep them on track, respectful, you know, and let them know, hey, if you're going to be in here, you need to be smart. You need to act right and do right. And, you know, just bring up the next generation.
Right. Right.
That's kind of what the role I played with them. But they would also let the boys know, hey, you got a problem with me? You got a problem? Talk to Chris Kern first, and then Chris Kern will talk to us. You know what I mean? I was the go-to guy in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And I loved the responsibility, and I loved working with the young talent. But the problem with them was they didn't listen.
Yeah.
You know, we had one guy, I'm not going to mention any names, but he was a young guy. And I kept telling him, look, if you're going to be a heel, act like a heel. Don't go out there and act like a babyface. If you're going to be a heel, you need to try to cheat, you know. Have a gimmick in your trunks. It's called a phantom gimmick. Whether there's really anything there or not, you pretend like you've got something and you're working it, you know, and you get heat. If you're going to be a heel, you got to get heat. And don't matter how many flips or flops you do, it ain't going to mean shit if they're not pissed off at you.
Yeah.
So he would go out and he'd say, yes, sir, no problem. And he would go out there and I'd watch the match and it was flip, 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 flop, 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 flip, 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 and no heat. Didn't try to cheat, didn't pull hair, didn't use a gimmick, nothing. So when he came back in the dressing room one night, I laid into him. You know what I mean? I laid into him pretty hard.
Yeah.
And JP was standing there and Chandler was standing there. And when the kid almost broke down in tears, they looked at him and said, I don't feel sorry for you because he's right.
Yeah.
If he told you beforehand what you needed to do and you went out there and you didn't do it, then it's on you. You deserve everything you just got.
Yeah. This man's telling you stuff that he's done more than you've ever dreamed of, and you're not listening. I mean, it
would be like Gypsy Joe telling me to go out there and do something when I was working for Gypsy, which was the hardest man that I ever worked for because I loved Joe, but man, was he strict, brother. Man, as a bookie, when he told you to do something the right way, he wanted it done exactly the way he envisioned it in his mind. Not your mind, but the way he envisioned it in his mind. So a lot of the problem that I had with Joe when I was first starting out with him was I didn't hardly understand him. And he would tell me what to do, and I thought I meant what he was saying. I thought I understood what he was saying, and a lot of times I really didn't understand what he was talking about. And I'd go out and do something like totally different. And then when I'd come back in the dressing room, he would cuss me. Golly,
oh, man.
I took so many cussings from Gypsy Joe, you wouldn't believe it. And then one night, Quentin Charisma looked at me. He said, Kern, do you know why he's so hard on you? I said, no, man, I don't. He said, you notice he's not as hard on everybody else as he is on you. I said, I know, it's just me. He picks on me. He said, well, he's not picking on you so much as I think he knows you've got the ability to go somewhere, you know what I mean? And he's trying to teach you what to do, when to do it, how to do it the right way and the wrong way so that you can go somewhere. A lot of us back here, he don't think we've got the potential, so he don't work as hard on us as he's working on you.
He saw something in you. Yeah.
And when Quentin said that, I was like, God dang, man, I think you might have, I think you might have something there.
Yeah.
And then when he told me that, I warmed up to Joe more, and I started taking him outside with me more and 420 more and smoking with him and partying with him, inviting him to my house and letting him come hang out at my rent-to-own store and stuff like that. And that's where we really got close, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I used to see Gypsy Joe on the daily. He spent the night at my house several times. I love him. I loved him up until the day he died, and he knew it.
Yeah.
And, that makes me sad just talking about him. But, yeah, Gypsy Joe, I also got to say that because of him, the only time I ever got to work with Tojo Yamamoto was because of Gypsy Joe. He brought Tojo into Shelbyville, and he and Tojo took some kendo sticks a hold of all the baby faces one night in a big schmoz. And Joe was trying to kill us with his kendo stick, but Tojo was smooth as silk with his. Tojo didn't hurt any of us, but Gypsy, he was laying them in. Tojo's kendo stick shots were a work, but Joe was killing us.
Wow.
And I carried whelps on my back for weeks after that, but it was all Gypsy Joe that was laying it in. Tojo was nice and easy. But let me tell you, the rule was when he said, "Okay, I got to tell you something." And I'm doing my Gypsy Joe gimmick here. He says, I got to tell you something. I got my friend coming here tonight. I don't want any of you motherfuckers to say nothing to this man. His name is Tojo Yamamoto. You come in here. He's gonna sit down. You're gonna walk up to him. You're gonna say, "Hello, my name is such and such," and then you walk away. Don't you say nothing else to him. If you say one more thing to him other than just, "Hello, how you doing? My name is such and such," I whoop your motherfucking ass myself. So, that was his instruction on everybody in the dressing room meeting Tojo. We were all allowed to line up and say hello to Tojo, but then after that, leave Tojo alone.
Leave him alone. Yeah. Yeah, show your respects, but leave him alone. Yeah.
And that's what we did until it was time for Tojo to do his thing. And at the end of the night, it was a big schmoz where the two heels came out and just beat up all the baby faces and left us laying. And that was Tojo and Gypsy Joe. And that's one of the best nights. That place came unglued, brother. That cab stand couldn't hold another person in it. And everybody was trying to get inside the ring to beat up Gypsy Joe and Tojo.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Security had to work their asses off.
Okay, well, we talked about Chandler and the Mikey issue there, but then obviously up until 2017 where you had your actual retirement. Talk a little bit about that.
It never really happened.
Gotcha, okay.
It never really happened that anybody could notice. I mean, I was working with Bobby Lowe's son. His name was Nick Lowe.
Oh, yeah.
And my son, Christopher, had gotten hurt in an accident. He tried to do a suicide dive in Shelbyville. He tried to do a suicide dive between the top rope and the middle rope, and his toes got caught on the middle rope, and it caused him to hit the back of the head. He had to be life flighted from Shelbyville to Nashville, and he was brain dead for he was out for at least 45 minutes.
Holy cow.
And I watched him seize, and I was the referee in the match. That was after I had quit wrestling and started refereeing. Anyway, he hit the floor, started seizing. Ambulance came and got him, and I didn't see him again until 3 o'clock in the morning. When the doctor came to the emergency room and said, "Mr. Price?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "Would you mind stepping into the chapel with me?" I was like, oh my God, because I just knew, man, And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "First things first, as a doctor, I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to have to say it. Other than a miracle from Jesus Christ, there's no reason why your son should not have some sort of brain damage or anything, but he has nothing. Your son is absolutely fine. He's got 6 staples. He's got a little bit of amnesia and a concussion. But other than that, as long as he can pass a cognizance test in the morning, he'll be going home."
Wow. Wow, man.
And I had already prayed to God, the brain starts losing oxygen after 7 minutes or something like that. And the brain starts losing oxygen. It starts dying or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was out for about 45 minutes until they got him to the Vanderbilt and they put a needle in his brain to stop the swelling. Anyway, I swore to God then that I would never wrestle again and I would never let him wrestle again. So the following Saturday was my last match. I wrestled in Money Mark Productions, and after the match was over, I just humbly sat down and took my boots off in the ring, and I left them sitting in there, and I didn't say anything. I didn't make a big spiel. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just walked away.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was 2017, and here we are. I've made 1 or 2 appearances. Hot Rod came to Tullahoma a couple of times, and I went and saw Hot Rod and did a little thing with him, made a little guest appearance or whatever. But other than that, I haven't done anything since 2017.
Man, brother, I wouldn't blame you,
I might be one of the only pro wrestlers that's ever really retired from pro wrestling.
You might be, dude. You might be, Chris. That's true. Well, man, this has been an awesome conversation. So we always wrap up every show with our little thing we like to call the name game. So Chris Kern, would you like to play the name game with us?
I would love to play the name game with you.
All right. Sounds great. DJ, hit that music.
Now it's time to play the name game. Now it's time to
All right, we are back with more with Chris Kern and the name game on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. And Jared, let's just take them back and forth, okay? So you start us off with the first name of the name game.
All right, tell us about Robert Wallace.
Robert Wallace, the man that trained me, Mr. Alabama. I love him. I absolutely love him, and I owe my whole career to him. He gives me credit all the time as being one of the easiest trainees that he ever trained. But as far as being a trainer, I've never been trained by anybody else, and I wouldn't want to be trained by anybody else. He taught me what I needed to know, did it in less than a year, and I paid him $500 down and $500 the night I started wrestling. It cost me $1,000 to get in the business, and I worked in front of him for about the first 6 months. And then I branched out and went on my way, and he's never been anything but proud of me. And I hope that to this day he's still proud of me, and I know he is. I talk to him on Facebook every so often, and he is my main man, and I owe my whole career to him, because if he hadn't been the one, like I said, I couldn't find a way into the business. You know what I mean? If it hadn't been for him, I might not ever have gotten into the business, but I owe my whole career to Robert Wallace.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man.
Well, we skip all around here, and we've talked about some of these guys, but we've got to wrap it up with these guys, too. So, of course, we got to say Lonnie Lane.
Carl Houston, Lonnie Lane, the bad boy. The gimmick was his idea. I just ran with it, and I loved him, and he was wild as a buck, though, man. Lonnie was the one that would get most of the heat. Believe it or not, I wasn't the one getting most of the heat with that gimmick. It was mostly Lonnie getting it, because Lonnie did a little bit of cheap heat. You know what I mean? He would call them sons of bitches, and, you know, he would cuss the people a little bit to get them riled up. But by God, when he got them riled up, there wasn't no unriling them. You know what I mean? They were pissed. They
fully
were
riled.
pissed, for real. Yeah, they were fully riled. Yeah. Lonnie Lane, what a guy.
How about Jackie Fargo?
The fabulous one, often imitated but never duplicated. My idol. You know, a lot of people think Hulk Hogan was their idol, Ric Flair was their idol, and for me, it was the fabulous one. He was the Hulk Hogan of his day. Probably made more money in the business than anybody in his day. Probably had the biggest guarantee of anybody in his day. And what a nice guy, man. He was just an all-around great guy. I remember as a kid, him just being nice to me. He didn't have to be, but he was nice to me, and he liked me, and I liked him, and he liked my mom, and, you know, my mom liked him. My mom knew he was married, and he knew he was married, and they never had anything like that. It was just, she worked in a restaurant, and he loved eating in that restaurant, and he loved me, and it was just, it was what it was. It wasn't nothing romantic between her and Jackie Fargo. It was just good times, man. And Jackie loved to drink, and she loved to sell him beer.
Only man that ever tried to buy you, too, probably. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we talked about him a minute ago, but a little something about Blackie West.
Blackie West. Greg Lloyd was his shoot name, and for a long time, I never knew what his shoot name was. But he was a handful, man. Blackie was a fistful of dynamite. He was a great guy, and there's a videotape that came out not long ago of one of the marks had hit him or something, and Blackie really had got pissed, you know, at that point.
Yeah.
And then when we got back in the dressing room, he was just as cool as a cucumber. You know, it was all, you know, part of the show.
Shakespeare.
You mother hit me, you son of a bitch, in there. He was going on about it, but that was Blackie. I mean, he was putting on a show, and that he lived for the business. He lived to make it real. He believed if we wasn't trying to make it real, then we wasn't doing our job. Because here's our psychology, man. Every tag team I've ever been with, or anybody that I've ever tried to work with, I've tried to instill this in them and myself, is you go to a wrestling show, you know what you're there for. And everybody knows that wrestling is what it is. And people say that it's fake. We say it's sports entertainment or theatrical art. But my job as a professional wrestler was to hear this. I wanted to hear the people say, you know, that first and second match, those two matches I think were kind of fake. You could tell that they wasn't really hurting each other. But that main event with them Southern Outlaws, or that main event with those Bruz Brothers, that match was real. I know that match was real because I saw Chris Kern drop kick that guy right in his face, and I know that blood was real because I watched him cut him with that hook. There's no way that shit wasn't real. I know that main event was real. Chris Kern and Hot Rod Biggs really did try to hurt them Morton boys, and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I felt like that was my job. Every other match could be fake if it wanted to be. But the match I'm involved in, by God, we're going to make them believe it was real.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How about Arvel Hutto?
Wow. Arvel Hutto, the guy that really gave me, I was with him, like, the first time I won the Tennessee Tag Team Championships against Mephisto and Dante was with Hutto. We had been working a gimmick up in Taft, Tennessee when I first came away from Athens. And me and Hutto started wrestling in Taft, and it didn't hold but maybe 100 or 150 people, but they were religious. Every Saturday night they were there. And we ran a program there for about 8 months, and then we finally brought it to the Fayetteville National Guard Armory and drew about 600 or 700 people, where Mephisto and Dante dropped the straps to us that night. And man, it was a great night. My grandmother actually owned a restaurant in Huntsville and sold about 150 advance tickets for that show, and made Arvel happy and made Danny happy because they were the promoters. And there's another guy that used to run with him. His old name was Thurman Dolan, and I don't know if y'all have ever heard of a guy named Thurman Dolan out of Florence, Alabama, but he wrestled as the Grand Wizard was the name that he wrestled.
Okay.
And Thurman Dolan, what a great guy he was. He was the acting promoter or whatever, and always gave me a lot of respect. And I always gave him the respect that he deserved, too.
It's awesome. Thurman was on the list, but you took care of him. I love it.
Yeah.
So the next, that's all good. We like it. You're doing it, man. So Sammy Manier.
Sammy Manier, the guy that ran Lewisburg, and he ran Columbia, and he ran Pulaski, and he ran Tullahoma, him and a guy named Tommy Reed. And Tommy used to call me up, and he'd say, "Hey, Kern, this is Tommy Reed." I'd say, "Yes, sir. I got a $15 spot in Pulaski, Tennessee on Friday night. Do you want it? It's a heel spot for $15. Do you want it?" I'd say, "Can I ride with Big Mike?" And he'd say, "Yeah." I'd say, "Hell yeah, I want it." And I'd go to work. I'd go to work for $15. But yeah, Sammy Manier and Tommy Reed, they always took not financial good care of me, but they made sure that I didn't get hurt, or they didn't hurt the Chris Kern. You know, they kept me strong. They didn't job me out to nobody or let me get hurt by nobody. And I think Sammy and Tommy and you know, they were great promoters, and they always had good houses too, man. They packed it out. Let me tell you a little story about them. Pulaski, Tennessee, I'm wrestling against the Junkyard Dog.
Oh, wow.
First time I had ever wrestled a major WWE superstar. Man, I was nervous, and there was probably 600 people there. And I guess probably 500 of them were black, and 100 of them were white.
Yeah.
And I go to the ring and I do my heel thing, and I'm talking about how great Chris Kern is and blah, 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 just doing a microphone spiel, and how I'm going to destroy this Junkyard Dog and this old man, and I'm going to kill him. I'm not just going to hurt him, but I'm going to kill him. Well, all of a sudden that song, Another One Bites the Dust, comes on. He comes out doing his gimmick. He's swinging that chain, and he gets in the ring, and he didn't tell me nothing about the match, what we were going to do or anything. I backed him into the turnbuckle. I gave him a shot to his head. He no-sold it. You know what I mean? That big hard head.
Yeah.
And I backed him, and I hit him again with my fist, and I sold my fist. And he didn't sell it. So he grabbed me, shot me across to the turnbuckle. I fed out for a clothesline. He picked me up on his shoulder, backed me up to the other turnbuckle, and then he did his big thump. 1, 2, 3. The match lasted probably 30, 45 seconds. But you would have thought that it had went an hour, because when he beat me that quick, it meant so much, because they had been waiting for so long. You know, I'd been talking on the mic and stuff, and I'd been building myself up. And then finally, when he came to the ring and the bullshit was over with, 45 seconds later, 600 people were on their feet, and they were jumping up and down, and it was a beautiful thing. And he made a lot of money at the gimmick table that night after the show.
Yeah.
Because he was selling Polaroids for $5 a piece. And I mean, he went through stacks and stacks of Polaroid camera film. I mean, stacks of it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Wow. Good story. How about Freddie Morton?
Freddie Morton, the guy that ran the Grand Slam. sold me my first pair of good-looking wrestling boots. Yeah, those red boots that I wore for so long, those were compliments of Freddie Morton.
That's awesome.
Freddie was a great guy. Freddie was all business. He was all about wrestling, but he was all about making money. And if you couldn't make money for him, then you didn't stay on his card. It was that simple. If you wasn't drawing people, then you wasn't going to stay. He didn't pull no punches. He either told you that he liked your work or he would tell you that he didn't like your work. And I was blessed enough to be one of the guys that stayed on his card for a great long time. Because I listened to guys like Big Mike. Big Mike taught me what to do, when to do, and how to do. And, you know, and it worked. And, I mean, I got to stay on the card with Freddie Morton in Columbia at the Grand Slam before anybody did it. I mean, he did it first, you know, and I was part of it, and I was thankful to be there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this next guy on the list is one of our favorite episodes. He's actually really high up in the rankings as far as downloads. It was a great episode. Really cool to talk to him. Got to know him a little bit more than I ever did. And his name's Rick Reynolds.
Wow. Forsaken. Rick Reynolds. Man, I love him. What is there not to love? I mean, how can you not love Rick Reynolds?
Yeah.
Most laid back, easygoing guy, but don't piss him off because he's got them hands, boy.
Yeah.
And them hands will hurt you quick. You better know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know, he will smarten you up real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never had a problem with him. Never did want a problem with him. I mean, I knew better.
Mm-hmm.
I knew who he was, what he could do, and I never disrespected him, and I never will. I think Rick Reynolds is one of the greatest guys in the business. Big, strong, quick, but fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just agile. You know, and loved it. Love him.
Yeah.
Love him to death.
He's one of our favorite shows, and we've had a lot of great shows, but man, he's a great one, and it was a great conversation.
At the last reunion, he talked about, like, what if, you know, and I don't know if y'all were there, but he said, what if, you know, what if today was the last day that we ever got to have a reunion?
Yeah.
But not only what if today was the last day that you ever got to see me, or I got to see you, or you got to see us, or all of us got to see you. Just what if we never have another reunion again? Are you satisfied with the career that you had? But better yet, what if today was our last day on earth? Are you satisfied with the life that you led? Are you satisfied with your relationship with Jesus? I mean, he took it and he shot straight with it, man. And it left all of us speechless. I left that reunion, you know, a little closer to God that day because of Rick Reynolds, you know?
That's amazing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
How about Hot Rod Biggs?
My brother from another mother. probably my favorite tag team partner of all time. I have to say, we had a lot of stuff in common. You know, we spent a lot of time in the back seat of a car, 420, and we would talk about the match that we were going to have as we were sitting in the car, and we would talk about, you know, the kid that we wanted to get the heat on and the one we wanted to get the hot tag to, and we would just plan everything out. And Rod has some great ideas. I can't take credit for a lot of the ideas that we did as the Bruz Brothers. I can take credit for taking him under my wing and showing him what to do, when to do, and how to do. But that's just things that I learned listening to Big Mike. But everything that I taught Hot Rod is something that somebody taught me. I was just passing the torch along to him. But Rod was great before he ever got with me. I mean, he already knew the business. He was trained by
Larry
Latham. So, I mean, to be trained by Larry Latham, one half of the Blonde Bombers, are you kidding me? I mean, what better trainer can you have?
Not much.
So he was already smart to the business. He already knew kind of what he was doing. I love Rod. Rod, please don't get mad at me for saying this, but his bumps were always kind of awkward, and I always kind of worried about the way he took his bumps. You know what I mean? But Rod's style was Rod's style, and it's what worked for him. Sometimes he would take bumps, and I'd be like, "Ow, God, that had to hurt." You know what I mean? But he would come back, and he wouldn't be hurt. You know what I mean? He would be just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, and as far as getting color, man, golly, dude, talking about somebody that could juice and loved the juice, man. He wanted to juice every match. I had to hold him back off that gig every once in a while. I said, no, we don't need it. We don't need it tonight. You know, it's not important tonight.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let's save it for 2 weeks down the road because he was gig happy, you know.
Yeah.
And it was good for the business. It's what the people wanted to see back then. But I didn't want him to do it too much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We wanted to get it done, but we wanted the time to be right. I had to break down when the time was right and when it wasn't. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Hot Rod Biggs. He's my boy. I can't say anything bad about him. I love him to death.
Yeah, that's another great interview we had. It was great.
Oh yeah, great interview, man.
I listened to that one.
Yeah, well, thank you, appreciate that. Well, the last one on the name game, and I think you're going to answer this one with a great answer here. And we saved her for last because I feel like she probably holds the most important spot in your life. Is Lady Tiffany?
Oh man, yeah, she's my rock. She's my daily basis, man. She's everything to me. We've got a daughter together. Her name is Scarlett, and she's got a daughter that's named Lisa. I've got another daughter named Sarah Beth, and then I've got my son Christopher. Altogether, we've got 5 children. And Tiffany came along with me in 2013. We got together, and there's quite a bit of age difference between us. I'm not going to lie about that. There's 18 years difference between us. But she's an old soul, and we've got a lot of things in common. You know, she likes the same music I like. We like the same TV shows, and we both love pro wrestling, and we've got a lot in common. I saw her in the crowd one night, and I said, I want your phone number, and she shook her head no. I said, I'm going to get your phone number. She kept shaking her head no. So she hit me up on Facebook about a month later. She said, hey, do you remember me? I said, refreshing my memory. And she said, who's the girl that you said you were going to get her phone number? I said, oh, yeah. Well, listen, my Facebook thing ain't working right now very well. I'm having trouble with my Facebook. Will you just text message me from your phone? And so she sent me a text message directly to my phone. I said, see, I told you I was going to get your phone number.
That's a good move, kids. Hey, you gave a lot of the younger talent good advice earlier. I think that's just good advice right there, too.
Yeah. So I got her phone number, and we started dating. And we had it kind of rocky at first, you know what I mean? Kind of rocky at first, but
sure,
it took a minute. We broke up for just a little while, but we got back together, and we've been together solid now for over 10 years. So
that's awesome.
Yes, and I love her. I'd never let a day go by that I don't tell her that I love her at least 10 times a day. And she's the one that leans on me, and I lean on her, and we're a partnership. It's not she's the boss or I'm the boss or anything like that. We're a partnership, and she helps me and I help her. And that's the way I think it should be, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to have that in your life, brother.
We're a tag team, you know?
There you go. That's a big tag. That's the important tag team right there. So I tell you what, man, you have passed the name game with flying colors, brother. So good job. Definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, as we wrap up this show, we always end it with the Sheik's favorite question of the show. Maybe the second favorite. It's always the last. Second favorite after Mount Rushmore. He always asks this question at the very end. So hit it off, Sheik.
So, Chris, if you could look back on your career and you could think, that's my favorite match ever that I had. Give us one or two if you need to, but like one or two favorite matches of all time.
Ooh, boy.
Big ass, right?
That's a big one. Yeah. Favorite matches of all time. Okay. I'll start with one that I thought would be my favorite match of all time, but it was the biggest disappointment that I ever had. It was McMinnville, Tennessee at Jake's Auction Barn, and Donnie Eaton and Beautiful Bobby Eaton versus me and Mike Woods.
Yeah.
I thought I finally get to wrestle Bobby, man. I'm finally getting to wrestle Bobby. Of course, the dressing rooms were still separated, and I didn't know that he was so lit, let's say lit,
sure,
that he needed the turnbuckle to hold him up.
Man,
he was in a bad situation that night, and he was in a bad way.
Yeah.
So the disappointment factor was tremendous, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the best match I've ever had, let's say I was running my own show here in Fayetteville. I called it IWO Championship Wrestling. And I'll probably say this because this is the night I made the most money.
Okay, smart.
I had trained a guy named Danny Armstrong, and he looked like an Armstrong, so I named him Armstrong.
I love it, yeah.
I was working for a guy named Joe Parsley who owned a convenience store. It was the most popular convenience store in town. I asked Joe, as a favor for drawing power, if you would be the special guest referee. You know how sometimes you let a mark in to do the spot for the special guest referee.
Right. Football coach, sheriff, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. So this guy owned the convenience store, and I invited him to come and be a special guest referee. The crowd was 650 people.
Wow.
Ringside seats were $7 a piece. I had 15 seats on each side of the ring, so automatically that's $420 just on the first row, not counting everybody else. So $6 for general admission, do the math. I made $3,000 plus that night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest shows I've ever had that I ever drew money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being the main event. Anyway, finish was Joe did the old gimmick where he squatted down on all fours and Danny pushed me and I tripped over the referee and he pinned me 1, 2, 3. Got the big baby face pop. And then I attacked him afterwards and got color on him and juiced him up and got my heat back, you know. And by that point, everybody in the crowd was ready to kill me. But that was one of my favorite ones, just mainly because it was my town and my show, and I made a lot of money and got over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some of my other favorite matches, I have to say, were with Orville Hutto wrestling Mephisto and Dante.
Oh,
Learning the business, learning what to do, when to do, how to do, what not to do, and taking those briefs, those terribly stiff shots from Cool Breeze Williams as a green guy, and learning from Cool Breeze for absolutely making no kind of mistake whatsoever other than just being green, and Cool Breeze just wanting to hit somebody real hard with a chair.
Right.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
I was that woman. But because he hit me so hard in front of my hometown, brother, people went crazy. I mean, they went absolutely crazy. They hated the Devils, and Tommy was married to a woman named Wanda at the time, and she was their valet. And they tried everything they could to get their hands on Wanda because she would hit me with a pitchfork or, you know, stab me with it or whatever. But, yeah, some of my greatest matches were with Orville Hutto. Oh, and that's another one of my favorite nights, man, down in Huntsville, Alabama. I just remembered that match, wrestling at the JC's building at the fair, the Alabama State Fair. We had it inside the JC's building, and we probably had 500 people away from the fair inside the JC's building to watch wrestling. And Bobby D was the promoter. You remember Bobby D, the old referee for Nick Goulas?
Yeah,
you ever heard of Bobby D?
Absolutely.
Bobby D was the promoter. Chase D, his son, was there as the ring announcer or whatever. And I was wrestling Orville. I was main event against Orville Hutto. They had brought me in, and I got on the microphone, and I started talking about how great Tennessee was and how great I was because I'm from the great state of Tennessee and all the things that we have in Tennessee versus all the things that you don't have in Alabama. We've got Memphis, the home of the blues. We've got Nashville, home of country music. We've got Knoxville, home of the UT Vols, and all you've got down here is one lonely little football team called the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I guess you people are real proud of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Anyway, the big heel spiel, you know, how great I am, how smart you are. Anyway, they hit Hutto's music all of a sudden, man. They played Abracadabra. And Hutto come running out to that ring, and he jumped in. He started tatering me. Well, not really, but boom, 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 boom. That crowd went nuts, brother. And we went for about 20 minutes of Hutto just calling whatever he wanted to call as a babyface, whatever he wanted me to do. And I listened to him, you know, and he led me right through that match. And we had him in the palm of our hand from the start to finish. And at the end of it, when I put him over with like a Pat O'Connor roll-up, 1, 2, 3, and he was gone. It was beautiful, man. I mean, it was some things you just never forget, you know, and that's one thing I'll never forget is that feeling. And then when Bobby D came to me and he said, man, that was one of the best matches I've ever seen. And for Bobby D to say that was one of the best matches that he had ever seen, after all the matches that Bobby D had ever seen before me, man, I was so humbled by that. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
He said, y'all worked that crowd perfectly. He said, that's one of the best matches I've ever seen. And here's your envelope. And at that time, I was probably making 25 or 30 everywhere I went.
Yeah.
He gave me $75 that night in my envelope. And I was like, wow, man. I felt so good, man. I was floating on cloud nine. I couldn't believe it. All the way home, I kept looking at my envelope thinking, man, I made $75 at one show. I couldn't believe it.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, brother, it has been awesome to have you on, and thank you for telling your story like you have. I know there's a whole bunch more, but we'll save that for part 2. But I tell you what, man, it's been just a real honor to have you on, and just thank you for doing this show with us, man.
Hey, man, thank y'all for allowing me to tell my story. You know, this is the only time, really, that I've ever been able to just open up and tell the things that I've told today. I've never really told anybody except the ones that are closest to me. And knowing that this is going out to a whole lot of people, that means a lot to me. And I want people to hear it. And I want them to understand something about the professional wrestling business, is that it is a business. And to all you young guys that are out there treating it like it's a PlayStation 3 game, stop it. Learn the craft.
Love it. I love it.
Learn the craft. Learn how to get heat. Learn how to get sympathy as a babyface. Learn how to make money. If you want to do spots, then do spots, but make them make sense. And tell a story with your matches. And it's good guy versus bad guy. It's not just two guys in a pair of tights and a pair of wrestling boots. It's a good guy and it's a bad guy. It's good versus evil. And to all you young guys, man, listen to me. If you will do it that way, you will get more of a response, and you will get a fatter paycheck because you will draw bigger crowds.
Man, that's it. That's the end of it. I love it. You can't say anything better than that. So thank you so much, Chris Kern. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been our honor to have Chris Kern on the show today. Jared.
Just appreciate your time, man. Thank you for coming on, and a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I'll be glad to do it again. Anytime y'all need me, I'll do it.
All right, brother. We'll hold you to that. Thank you, sir. And honestly, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk soon. Okay, buddy?
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again to Chris Kern. And we'll be right back to wrap things up with the Plastic Sheik on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
This is the big picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Mike Jablonski's Pissed Off YouTube channel.
The Buckfrog in the sport, he's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think, you're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski, it's a pissed off. Mike Jablonski, it's a pissed off. Mike Jablonski, it's a pissed off. He's pissed off.
If you're a fan of rock music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
Oh, Sheik, one more time, man. Chris Kern is awesome, dude. That was really cool.
Yeah, man. I mean, just right from the very start when he talks about being like 4 or 5 years old and doing the Fargo strut in the ring, man, that's amazing.
You asked that question, and then a whole bunch of stuff unveiled from right there, man. You were like, "Did you ever do the Fargo strut as a fight in the ring?"
Yeah,
it's like, holy cow.
I was like, what?
Yeah, and then his aunt Sherry dated Andre the Giant. I mean, there's so much to that, man. It like that right there told me this was going to be a good show from there on out, you know. And man, did some stuff in WCW. I mean, I don't want to do a recap of the whole show, but man, it was a really good show, and I'm happy to have had him on here. He was on the list, this magical list. I'm sure that everybody is tired of hearing about, but yeah, man, we just had a good conversation with him. I was happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty interesting story, which I have no doubt has a lot of truth to it. The Jackie Fargo trying to buy him for
I know
$20,000 off his mom. I mean, dude. That's so crazy. I mean, there's no way to make that up. It's so crazy. It's like
I know. Because I mean, I've heard stories of Jackie Fargo drinking, and like, you know, back when the Dundees, the Lawlers, and the Jarretts all lived semi close to one another, Jackie came and played Santa Claus, and so he started at the Jarretts, and then he came to the Dundees, and then he went to the Lawlers, and apparently when he got to the Dundees, he was pretty well lit, and Jamie tells this story pretty well, and then he ends up
ruined their Christmas.
Ruins the Lawlers' Christmas because he was falling all over the place, and yeah, Sandy wants whiskey, boy. Yeah, man, Jackie Fargo's a definite true legend, no question there, the fabulous one. But anyway, man, great interview. Glad to have him on. Glad to learn more about him. And he's just a good dude, man. Just really happy to hear that. So, yeah, had a good time with that one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a great interview. And, you know, we learned something about somebody we didn't really know that much about, that, you know, he had some great stories. And, you know, even you, as well prepared as you always are, didn't even have some of the stories he ended up telling us. So that's pretty awesome.
I know. And, you know, guys, I don't want to spill the beans, but our next few episodes are going to be great. We've got guys like Scott Spade, Billy Montana. I've been in contact with my old buddy Steve-O, who helped me out a lot when I was first getting in the business. Reno Riggins. I mean, there's so many other guys I want to mention, but right now, I tell you, to be honest, you know, the next episode we've got is going to be with Scott Spade. He's actually a buddy of Rick and Shane, and from Chicago, Illinois. We're going to bring him on, see what's up with him, and hopefully we'll have just as great an interview with him as we have with all the other guys. So interested. Another one we'll learn more about because neither of us know him. So it'll be fun, man. And got some good names coming up and very excited. Hopefully we'll keep rolling, keep this train rolling just like it is, you know? So
yeah, absolutely, man. It's going good.
Yeah. Well, as always, with everything I always ask, if you could go rate and review us on Spotify, Apple, if that's where you listen to us. If you don't, just keep listening on the app that you like. Also, YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, follow, notify, whatever you got to do on there. We thank you for that. Leave us a comment. You know, Halloween fan Mark is always great about leaving comments. Thank you. Want to give you a shout out there, brother. You know, it's always good to hear from the people that listen and tell us what they're thinking of the shows. Very much appreciate that. Again, we're at GMBMPW on all the social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, just at GMBMPW. Make sure you're following us on there so you can hear and see all about it. Also, if you've got a business or event or anything you want to promote coming up, let us know. We'd love to run an advertisement for you on the show. Got great rates and all kinds of opportunities for that. Depending on what you want and how much you need, we can make it happen. I promise. We can even run it on both of my shows, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, and this one, The Mothership, Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. You just let us know. We'll be happy to help you out with that as well. You know, once again, we just appreciate the listeners so much. Y'all mean so much to us. We definitely appreciate you coming on this ride with us and supporting us as you do. You know, with that being said, brother, you got anything else you'd like to share?
You know, I did see a few, you know, kind of big names were released by WWE the other day.
Yeah, that's shame.
Ziggler and Shelton Benjamin and what is it? Emma or Tennille Dashwood, whatever you want to. So, I mean, there's some bigger names.
Yeah.
If they want to, they could be somewhere else probably pretty soon. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dolph Ziggler, 20-year career, man. It's a shame. They just seem to never really put the pedal on the gas with him. And Shelton Benjamin, I just feel like he's one of the biggest missed opportunities as far as athletic and, you know, quality in the ring. I just feel like he's one of the guys that should have been much higher on the card, or at least given that opportunity more times than the one or few times he had the Intercontinental title, you know. But
right, yeah. Little Sheik wanted me to let everybody know that Mustafa Ali got released as well.
Oh no, yeah. Well, sorry, Little Sheik. Sorry to hear that, but yeah, there were some names on there. Some of them, you know, bigger than others, but you know, it's always a breath of fresh air whenever hopefully they land on their feet. And, you know, I think a few of them will do fine on the show. I mean, you know, there's so many opportunities with wrestling these days for a guy to even work his way on the indies, you know, he can,
oh yeah,
he can live, you know, so Yeah.
Depends on how much you want to do that. I mean, Matt Cardona and them have showed you can work pretty good on the indies for money. I don't know exactly what he's pulling in, but
yeah,
you know. Depends on what you want to do, basically.
Exactly. We hope y'all land on your feet. We definitely appreciate the years of entertainment y'all have given us, and hopefully we'll see you somewhere soon, probably in AEW. But, you know, as things go, you know, that AEW is getting pretty full, you know, so it's how many guys do they want to absorb from WWE? It does feel like the natural next step for a lot of the guys that end up leaving WWE. They do seem to usually end up in AEW as if you're a name of any kind, you know. So, but yeah, I think that's it for the day. Once again, we thank you all so much for listening. So for our guest, Chris Kern, my co-host, the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street, I'm Jimmy Street, and we're Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. See y'all next time.
Don't forget.
Fight forever.
Hey, that's my line.
With a tear in my eye. This is the greatest moment in my life. This has been a James Rock Street production.